all batting alignment, and that belongs to Warren Cromartie. Now, here's a fellow who had an off year, and if there is a negative thing about it, about this powerful lineup, and why they didn't win a year ago, I guess one of the fingers could point to Cromartie because he had an off season. He only hit .254. At that, he hit 14 homers and 62 RBIs, but he is a good-looking ball player.
Well, this is a guy that I had heard that they were going to try to trade in the offseason because of the comeback of Terry Francona, who was a .300 hitter and coming back from a severe injury. It looked like Cromartie was expendable. Obviously, they couldn't trade him, but here's a guy who's a good, solid, everyday player. Harry's a better hitter than .254. He just had that bad year, and he patrols right field pretty well for him.
Now, just to prove that it isn't all the bat, even though we all think of baseball today, home runs, RBIs, there are some guys who earn their salary just with their glove and with their range and with their arm. And that's the case in their 8th place hitter, their second baseman, Doug Flynn, who only hit .244 last year. He's been around before. He's known as a no-hit, good field infielder.
Well, you can't really win a National League pennant without a good double play combination, and that's why Doug Flynn is in the lineup. He turns the double play very well at second base. If you can only give him 3 outs an inning, Harry, you're going to help your pitcher out a lot. And I believe that because Steve Rogers gives up so many ground balls, especially in double play situations, they want a man at second base who can turn the double play, and that's what Doug Flynn gives to him.
And of course, we've talked already about Steve Rogers, their starting pitcher. Now let's turn the score sheet over and let's run down the White Sox lineup. And this is a luxury we seldom have, to give you in detail the starting lineups of a ball game. The only reason we can afford that luxury today is because it's raining and the game has been delayed and the infield is covered. All right, leading it off for the Chicago Cubs in left field, hit .263 last year with the Cubs, no homers and 4 RBIs, Mel Hall.
Here's a guy, Harry, who can give you a lot of excitement because he can run, he can hit with a little power. He looks like he's going to be a pretty good left fielder. He had a nice spring. He started off very slowly. He came back. This is a guy they look to start the offense off. I think he'll hit a surprising amount of home runs for a leadoff hitter.
And I think many of his home runs are going to go into that left field section of the ballpark.
Only if the wind blows out.
The wind today is blowing in and rather strongly. It's a cold, wet day. All right, batting second, one of the really glamour guys of the Chicago Cubs. Just 23 years old, class personified on the baseball diamond. Ryan Sandberg, who hit .271 last year with 7 homers, and he had 32 stolen bases. He is the equivalent plus offense for the Cubs that the Expos had only defensively in Doug Flynn.
Well, I really believe that he has wisdom beyond his years as a second baseman. He has a great instinct for the game. He's going to hit. He's going to only get better as a hitter, and he's probably the best base runner that the Cubs have. He's going to steal that base for you. He goes from first to third very well. This is a guy you got to love to have on your ball club.
And batting third, the prize package of the entire Cub ball club and maybe of the entire league, the fine first baseman, Bill Buckner, who last year just had a tremendous season. He hit .306. He had 15 homers. He drove in 105 runs. He stole 15 bases, all of which were career highs. And there's not enough praise that you can give to a Bill Buckner because he is just sensational. What I'm worrying about him on a day like this, Steve, as cold as wet as it is, in view of the fact that he's just recovering from that circulatory abnormality, what effect that's going to have on those fingers today?
Well, Harry, now 2 of his fingers were cold in spring training. The other 8 are going to join him now because it's a pretty cold day today. But if there's one word that you look for in the description of Bill Buckner, to me, it's always been desire. He has as much desire at this point of his career as he did when he was a rookie. He's going to give you the big effort every day, and he's a guy that I just look to provide constant leadership, both offensively and defensively for the Cubs. He's one of my favorite players on the team.
Steve, you've been on World Championship ball clubs in Baltimore. And you know that there is such a thing called character, without which a team cannot win. There's a certain chemistry, a certain makeup, a certain character that you feel about winning ball clubs. And if you get enough guys like the Buckners and the Sandbergs and the Durhams and the Says and the Boas and up and down the line, if you can get enough of those guys to make up your squad, then you have that chemistry that only winning teams have.
Well, sometimes it's a catch-22 situation, Harry. You can't win without having the guys who have won on your ball club, and yet you can't have the guys on your ball club unless you've had a winner. But the Cubs in this case have filled in with guys, as you said, who are from winning traditions, from the Philadelphia organization, from the Los Angeles Dodger organization, teams that have won for years. These are the guys that are going to bring leadership to the youngsters on the club. Tell a Mel Hall how to do it, a Ryan Sandberg how to do it. That's why Bill Buckner and Larry Boa, Ron Say are essential. Fergie Jenkins, these are the guys that you have to show the youngsters, guys, we're not out of it, this is what we have to do to win.
That's a very interesting observation and a very pertinent point, Steve, because I don't care who the manager or the coaches are, I don't believe they have the same influence on an individual player that his own teammate has. And I know in the old Cardinal ball clubs, the guys who created the discipline on the club were the players themselves. When they got on an individual, he had to put his act together, whereas maybe he might slough off a little reprimand from the manager.
Well, sometimes the managers can't say something that one of his peers can. For instance, in Baltimore, we had Lee May on the ball club, who may be one of the finest guys you can have on your team. And the guy would be sitting in the training room, maybe with a couple aches and pains, maybe taken out on a double play the day before. And Lee would come in the training room and he'd sit down right next to him and he'd look at his knee and he'd go, you gonna play today? The guy go, I don't know, it's a little sore. He's going, well, I think you probably have a lot of time after the ball game to take care of it. And maybe it's best if you got on out there. And it was a constant prodding by guys like Terry Crowley and Lee May and Pat Kelly that brought these guys around that could just push them a little bit more to be in the ball game.
It's amazing, that's surprising sometimes, the identity of the guy who really is the glue man of the ball club. You know, when Orlando Cepeda joined the St. Louis Cardinals, he had sort of a bad rap as a clubhouse lawyer. He turned out to be the man on the ball club that kept all the factions together and made a solid team out of them. He had the nickname Cha-Cha-Cha. And boy, the clubhouse was always a gay, convivial, spirited place to be in because of him. And that, of course, pulled everybody together.
Well, you know, Frank Robinson's reputation in Cincinnati was one of a guy who liked to party a little bit. And, of course, he was always an intense ball player. But when he came to Baltimore, they saw a different side of Frank Robinson. He really became one of the leaders. And Frank, along with Brooks Robinson, was a catalyst for those great mid-'60s ball clubs. And he just changed a little bit that attitude that you can project as a leader. Someone with character sometimes can make a team play just a little bit better than they're capable of playing.
You know, one of the real stalwarts on the big red machine of the Cincinnati Reds, I understand, it wasn't Pete Rose, wasn't Joe Morgan, wasn't Johnny Bench. It was a guy named Tony Perez.
Well, Tony led his ball club by example, but you know, being a great Latin star, you have a lot of young Latin players on the ball club, and Tony was able to get these guys to play a little bit. He could speak their language. He also was someone that they looked up to, and sometimes on a Latin player being in a country that they're not familiar with, in front of some fans that are not their fans, you need a guy like Tony Perez, who had so much success over the years, to speak to him and say, this is how you do it.
Well, that reminds me, bringing that up, if I might just digress a little bit from giving you the lineup and some of these things we're talking about. I forget who the Latino was who couldn't speak any English and didn't know how to order food. All he learned was ham and eggs. He developed a chronic case of dysentery until they found out that the reason was that's all he had been eating, morning, noon, and night, ham and eggs.
Well, Fernando Valenzuela doesn't understand too much English either, but I think he's getting a lot more than ham and eggs over there this year in L.A.
I think, though, that he knows enough about the language to be able to make out a check for a couple of $1 million whenever it's necessary.
At this point, and with his ability, he's certainly going to earn it for L.A.
All right, we've gone through Bill Buckner batting third for the Chicago Cubs. One of the up-and-coming superstars, if he isn't there already, and he may be, and that is Leon Durham, who can do it all. Hits with power, hits to all field, hits for percentage, can run, he can throw, he's fine defensively, and he can go from first to home as well as anybody in the game.